NHL.com released their first Super 16 ahead of the 2024-25 season. Where do the Predators rank? And what has to happen to bump them up the list? We're going to tell you on today's Locked On Predators podcast.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Predators podcast, and thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are your free daily Nashville Predators podcast. We're a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to kick off this episode with a welcome to our new listeners, a hello to our everydayers, and a shout out to our Locked On Predators insiders. We appreciate your support. We love that we get to kick off your day with you. I'm Ann Kimmel. I am a writer with Penalty Box Radio, and my friends, I have a partner in crime.
You do. I'm Emma Lingen, and I'm the Predators site editor and reporter for the Hockey News.
Well, on today's show, we're going to be talking a little bit more optimistically with some input from NHL.com. You see Emma twitching. We're going optimistic, I think, maybe, Emma. The Predators fans may be feeling optimistic, but national writers and editors feel pretty good about the Nashville Predators as well. We're going to take a close look at NHL.com's top 16 teams of the preseason and break down what we think they have right about the Predators, what they may have right about the Predators that we don't like. And then we're going to see how we feel about the rest of the rankings. Before we dive into all of that, want to let you know today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Okay, Emma, so we took a look at this article and just off the top, before we dive into too much, let's just say the Nashville Predators on this Super 16, best 16 teams in the NHL as it stands now, 0 games played and all that. NHL.com ranks the Predators lucky number 7. Although I guess it would be lucky number 1 because then they would think you were winning the Stanley Cup. But you know what I'm saying, y'all. Follow along with me.
You don't want to be the favorite to win the Stanley Cup because then the expectations are just way too high.
That's
it's like
right.
winning the President's Trophy. Like that's your kiss of death.
Yeah.
Do it.
So here are the Predators sliding in at number 7. All right. Before we get into all of the details, Emma, just tell me, too high, too low? How do you feel about number 7, Nashville?
Well, I do feel like I've been uncharacteristically positive on the show for much of this week.
Some things. Yep,
Yeah,
I've seen it.
I'm a little concerned for myself, but I think that now this actually is a good opportunity, and I'm not being negative just for the sake of it. I will say this brings me back to my equilibrium. I will say number 7, a little high. It's a little high.
Yeah,
I just look like it's great. It's good. But I mean, I think Barry Trotz might look at that and say, hey, it's still fantasy hockey. So I think like it's maybe a little too high. It's again, they got all the right pieces. They went out and got all the right pieces. They have their star goaltender. They have Roman Josi still. They still have that top line. But I can't help but think about how long it took this team last season. It took them more than half a season just to kind of come up with or to pick up on Andrew Burnett's system. And so we talked about patience and grace with these new guys and how long is it going to take them? And yes, it looks great on paper, but how is it actually going to look? It just, 7 seems a little high.
You know what's funny is I usually wear the positive pants in this podcast, but I agree with you. I feel like 7's a little bit high, and it isn't even so much because I underestimate what Nashville can do, but I also feel like it's a little bit high because they made moves in the offseason that were big, but are they big enough to really skip over a handful of teams that are really perennial contenders, that truly are what Nashville used to think they were, which is just one good piece away? There are some teams that really actually are just maybe one good piece away from being a serious contender. And I feel like Nashville leapfrogged some of those teams. And it makes me think, A, appreciate the love, but B, I don't know, guys. I
It
don't
just it
know.
feels like a lot for a team that's been in the mushy middle for so long. It's like, whoa, where did that come from? Now,
Yes.
one thing I will say to give credit to NHL.com for this, they do still have both Colorado and Dallas ranking ahead of the Predators on this list. So
So
that's
they're
good.
not off their rocker entirely, folks.
They're not, they don't have the Predators, in theory, don't have them winning the Central. So I think that is that, like you said, not off their rocker completely. Um,
Yes.
they have leapfrogged some teams that I think are questionable there. I mean, in the top 7, I think they're right ahead of Vancouver at number 8,
Mhm.
which is quite a bold claim
It
considering
is bold.
Vancouver knocked them out of the playoffs last year. Now, both teams do look different now than they did last year, but still, even with the point projections, like the projected points that they're supposed to finish the season with, it's like there's a massive drop off between where the Predators are at number 7 and then I want to say it's Carolina around number 10. Like there's a
Yes.
huge drop off there and it's like, ooh, I don't know about that.
Yeah. This is how they rank them. They had 15 writers and editors at NHL.com rank teams. And I think it was it was obviously 1 to 16, seeing as they ranked the top 16. We're not going to be out math today. We just got done celebrating National Math Storytelling Day yesterday. So our math is just right on par. I think these rankings are very interesting. So I went through and looked at how Nashville finished in the voting. They got 2 10th place votes, 2 9th place votes, 4 8th place votes, 2 7th place, 2 6th place, 1 5th place vote. 2 writers ranked them third. Third. And I'm looking around like, did you know about have you seen a guy named Nathan McKinnon and his good buddy Cale Makar? Like, I'm just curious. Have you heard of these guys? Like,
Or
I
that
love
that
it,
guy
but
named Jason Robertson, like, have you heard
yeah.
of those
Yeah,
guys? Like,
his trusty sidekick, Wyatt Johnston. I mean, come
yeah.
on. Like, we are the Locked On Predators podcast. We would be lying if we said we weren't excited about what we see from the Predators, but we also live in the world where people are. And rank 3rd place votes? Okay.
I mean, hey, like, again, to me, and again, resident pessimist reporting for duty here, I think that to me, it seems a little bit like, maybe this is too harsh of a word, but it's a little bit of like lazy reporting in the sense
Mhm.
that you are just looking at this team on paper and you see Steven Stamkos, Roman Josi, Philip Forsberg, you see Saros, and you're like, oh, that's a 3rd place team. And it's like, well, yes, if you only spend about 10 seconds thinking about it, but it's like
Right.
if you're not someone who covers the team and who sees the team a lot and has kind of seen them grow and evolve, especially over the last pair of seasons, it just seems a little bit lofty. It's kind of just like it's like, well, 2 and 2 equals 4 or 2 and 2 equals 5, it's like with Nashville, I think an example of this would be kind of similar, would be with UC Saros before he signed his long-term contract extension. All of these rumors and stories about, oh, Nashville should trade him.
Mhm.
And it goes back to what you used to say a lot, Anne, which is like, just because you can, like just because
Right.
he is a trade chip Like, just because he has value as a trade chip doesn't make him one. And so
Right.
I look at this in the same sort of vein where it's like, okay, just because they have all these pieces of a winning team, it really doesn't mean anything if they can't put it together. So it's like, you're not a winning team. The team is the sum of its parts, yes, but those parts have to work together.
This is definitely a preseason ranking based on potential. Whoever voted Nashville third, you see a lot of potential. And as a parent, let me just tell you, you can see potential all day long, but you gotta help people realize it. And that's Andrew Brunette's challenge.
These
Yes.
guys think that whoever voted the Predators third thinks the Predators are going to be president of the United States one day. That's what this is.
Look, I would vote for Colton Sissons. I think he's Canadian though, isn't
He's
he?
not even American, but you know what? Me too. Why not?
Yeah. Who do we have that's American that we would vote for? Michael
Michael
McCarron?
McCarron, Cole
Let's
Smith,
go. Oh my gosh, and there it is, ladies and
Mark
gentlemen.
Delgaizo, Spencer Stastny. I
Oh my
mean,
gosh. Yeah. We're going into politics after we wrap up this Stanley Cup run, apparently, here at the Predators. Coming up, we're going to tell you exactly what the positives were that got Nashville on this list and as high as they were on this list. We got to talk about that one area of concern that continues to plague the Predators, even after all these impressive offseason additions. If you are looking forward to seeing this Nashville Predators team play this season, or if you want to go out and make some great fall memories with a live event with family and friends, you have got to check out Gametime. Gametime is the fastest and easiest way to get tickets for your favorite music, sports, theater, and comedy. Gametime now has this great feature. It's called Gametime Picks, and it makes getting tickets for your favorite events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time going through thousands and thousands of tickets. Right now, Gametime has tickets available for Vanderbilt versus Alabama this weekend. They have great seats still available for Post Malone next month at Nissan Stadium and for comedian Brad Williams at the Ryman. Gametime also comes with a low price guarantee, and they have the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. Today's episode is also brought to you by our great friends at FanDuel. It is the most wonderful sports time of the year, and the best place to go and celebrate that is with FanDuel. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. NFL fans, I know the Titans been a little bit of a bumpy start, but don't worry, you can kick off your season with a big return at FanDuel. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out all the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play and so much more. And that's all on the same page where you place your bets. You can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets with your first $5 bet. You can check out all the action at fanduel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Okay, Emma, I want to read to you from this list of the Super 16 what they had to say about the addition of the Nashville Predators. This is a blurb from one of the writers and editors who feels good about what we have here going on in Nashville. It says they have loads of potential. That's the word. And they're a definite cup contender after signing forward Steven Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault and defenseman Brady Skjei to long-term contracts and locking up goalie UC Saros during the offseason. Again, I come back to that word, potential. And that is what Nashville has. Nashville does have a ton of potential, but potential doesn't lift a Stanley Cup. And that's where the number 7 makes me a little bit nervous. Yes, I think you look at this team very differently if they hadn't signed Stamkos, Marchessault, Brady Skjei, if they hadn't locked in UC Saros. But you had a great point. It took this team halfway through the season to get what Andrew Brunette wanted out of them. Can Steven Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault and Brady Skjei get up to speed faster to be the big contributors that Nashville really needs to be a definite cup contender? Do you see them as a definite cup contender this season?
No. Not saying no, they won't be. I'm saying if you're asking me right now, do I feel comfortable saying that? No. And the reason is we have not seen this team in its current form. Like, we have not seen them play. I feel more comfortable saying that a team like Edmonton or Colorado, for example, because we know how they play. We know what they look like. There's not as many question marks around them. And I think that for Nashville, can they be like that? You know, do they have the potential, the $1,000,000 word? Yes, they do, but I don't feel comfortable right now saying absolutely, you know, it's cup or bust for this team. I think that that's obviously the goal. That's what they want to be, but I think, you know, I still think that there's too much unknown about what this team is going to look like together as
Mhm.
they play together and as they kind of work through, you know, there's an adjustment period for everything. And we've talked about that before. So I don't know. I think that I don't feel like I can say right now, yes, this is definitely a cup contender. It's not out of the realm of possibility, but it's too early to tell because this is a very, very different looking team than what we
Yes.
had last year. Now, in theory, it's a better team than what we had last year. And, you know, by that logic, they were a playoff team last year, so they should be a, you know, a higher ranking playoff team this year, just maybe not number 7.
Yeah, it's the word definite. They're a definite cup contender. Here is what I will say. I think the Nashville Predators are a definite cup contender in the next 2 to 4 seasons. And even then, gosh, definite feels big.
Yeah.
Definite. But I think especially with this being the first season with Stamkos and Marchessault and Skjei, I think it's a stretch to say this is the year. Again, potential all there, but when it's your first year out of the gate and the new players that have to make adjustments are going to have to be some of your top contributors throughout the season, that's a big ask for Stamkos and Marchessault and Skjei. And you've
Yeah.
got to keep everyone else healthy.
Yeah, that's a big thing too. You know, the knock on wood, they managed to stay pretty healthy last year in terms of their biggest you know, offensive contributors. I just think that, yeah, I mean, for me personally, I don't love speaking in absolutes, mostly because
Yes.
I hate being wrong. So the more often you speak in absolutes, you know, that opens you up to a greater possibility of being
Yes.
wrong. But in this case, I am genuinely saying I would not say they're a definite cup contender.
Yeah.
To me, things like that, I can't say that unless I've seen a consistently high level, and we just
Mhm.
haven't seen that yet. We haven't seen it
Yes.
yet from the Predators.
Now, here is the one caveat that was in this piece about what could be the hitch in the giddy up for the Nashville Predators. And this is not a repeat episode of the Locked On Predators podcast, even though it may sound like a broken record. Nashville does not have an elite center. They don't. I mean, you look down the middle at what kind of we're seeing in training camp. Ryan O'Reilly, love him, great at a million things. Tommy Novak, great playmaker. Colton Sissons, just Swiss Army knife. Michael McCarron, just don't cross him, girl dad. But there is not an elite center on this roster. Is there one in the pipeline, Emma? This is the question. Is there one in the pipeline? You look, there's a lot of excitement about, Fedor Svechkov, who, by the way, as we mentioned, he is now week to week, was injured in the Florida preseason game. Fedor Svechkov, Igor Surin, maybe Teddy Stiga. A lot of people really like him, but in the elite center conversation stresses me out because it makes you feel like, oh my gosh, I don't have one. I don't have one. Oh my gosh, we don't have one. Can you win without an elite center? Because here's the deal. If all 32 teams had, or if 31 teams had an elite center, it wouldn't be elite. Like there's a reason that Leon Draisaitl is great, because he owns Nashville, but there's a reason why elite centers are elite. Does this team need to go out and get one to win? The $8 million question, friends.
Literally the $8 million.
Literally.
Let's go re-sign Ryan Johansson. That'll fix all of our problems. No, I think it's definitely a valid question. It's a valid point. I think I would counter by saying if you have multiple elite forwards, whether
Mhm.
they're on the wing or elite defensive players, you got Roman Josi. Like I think that it's possible.
Yeah.
It's hard to say as far as the pipeline question. It's hard to say because, to be quite honest with you, the guys who I think would be in that conversation are too young right now for me to really
Yes.
know.
It's so hard to predict development in the
Yeah.
NHL. It's just so
Potential.
hard. Yeah, it's all potential. There's that word again, all potential. Interestingly, Emma mentioned this at the top of the show. Nashville, for as great as they ranked on this list, they are still not the top team in the Central Division. They are behind Dallas, who ranks number 3, and Colorado at number 6. How do you feel about those rankings, Emma? And what could change that in the Central Division?
I mean, I think that, like I said, that was the one part of these rankings that I think they got right, that at
Mhm.
least they don't have Nashville ahead of those two teams. I think Dallas so Dallas at number 3, some people might think to be a little high, but for me personally, I had Dallas as my preseason pick to win the Stanley Cup last year. Obviously, that did not happen, but I think that if you look at this team, not a lot has changed
Right.
in terms of the key pieces. I mean, unfortunately, they have lost Joe Pavelski to retirement. They've, for the most part, there's been like it's mostly depth guys that they've lost, and it just doesn't really seem like they're a totally different team. So if this is the same team, more or less, that last year I would have picked to win the Stanley Cup, it makes sense that they would be at number 3.
Mhm.
For Colorado, like, to me, it's just Nathan McKinnon and Kel McCarr, but to me, especially McKinnon, and that goes back to that elite centerpiece. He's the great equalizer. Like, even though,
Mhm.
like, their situation maybe in net isn't necessarily spectacular, I think both Dallas and Nashville have a leg up over Colorado in terms of their goaltending. But it's just, it's like they're unstoppable.
Yeah.
And it's just they always have, as long as they have McKinnon and to an extent McCarr, but especially McKinnon, it's like they're always going to be a threat.
Anything is possible. That when I look at those two teams, I think with Colorado, that's a team you can just never bet against. You just can't bet against them when you look at the talent that they have and the proven experience that they've had. When I look at Dallas, it's so funny. You hear people, we have a special coming out with the top 4 teams from the Central last year, and got to chat with the Locked On Stars host, and he was like, "Well, our defense isn't quite what it was," and I'm like, "You sound just like the girl in high school who was like, oh, I think I just failed that quiz, and she got a 99." Like, that is what the Dallas fans sound like to me when they're like, "Oh, but our defense might not be good." Are you joking?
This is how I feel as, I also cover baseball, and this is how I feel when New York Yankees fans try to tell me that their team sucks. I'm like, just
Just no.
just no. If you think that, then you have had it too good in
Right.
your life. And
Yeah.
I think Dallas, part of the reason I love Dallas as a concept, as that team. I think
Mhm.
Jim Nill has done a fantastic job in building that team, and I think that their depth all around is unmatched.
Mhm.
There's really not that big drop off from like the top 6 to the bottom 6 or the top pairing to the second and third pairings that you see with other teams. And I think that that is the mark of a really good team. I also maybe I kind of picked them out of wishful thinking. For the record, for anyone listening, I'm not like a diehard Stars fan. It probably sounds like I am in the middle of this, but I like the idea of they don't just have one superstar. And it's kind of
Very
like
true.
it's
Yes.
a team effort. And I kind of wanted Dallas to debunk the idea that you need that elite guy, like that elite superstar to lead you. And I mean, maybe that's the answer, that they didn't do it last year, but that doesn't mean that they can't do it this year.
Yeah. I like Dallas too for the same sort of along the same lines as you're saying, in that they're doing it with seasoned veterans and they're bringing up young players who are jumping in and filling big roles as well. And I think that is great to see, because so often you see teams where the window for success is based solely on these veterans last kind of their last gasp. And that's sort of what Barry Trotz is working towards. He wants to make this a team in the next 3 to 5 years that is these veterans with a lot of help from the young players as well. So I think Dallas, it's a good look. I don't like the jerseys, but I think what they're building is a good look. Coming up, we're going to tell you, we're going to go right down the list of 16. We're going to tell you how they rank, and Emma and I are going to tell you if we are totally offended by any of the other rankings. Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. We are all driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences. So the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/locked on. Just go to Indeed.com/locked on right now and let them know you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Again, that is Indeed.com/locked on. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. All right, Emma, let's just start here. We're just going to go right here at the top and go down. And I have to tell you, I shouldn't be surprised because of the specifics of these top two teams, but I just am like, okay, it's not the easy way out, right? Number 1, Florida Panthers. Number 2, Edmonton Oilers. Do you think those are two teams that are legit can repeat?
I do. I do. I think the off season for Edmonton, I personally might put Edmonton at number 1. I think that they had, a good off season. But again, maybe that's the kiss of death, because again, I had Dallas last year. So who knows? Sorry, Oilers, if I just cursed you. But I think that I hear what you're saying, that like, oh, it's an easy way out, but like honestly,
It's
taking a
legit.
look, it's legit.
It's legit. Now, I will say this. I take a little bit of offense to the fact that in the article they do say that they may still need some help on defense. What are
You
you
have
talking
Matthias
about?
Ekholm.
You
What
have
more do you
Matthias
need?
Ekholm. I mean, sit yourself down. Sit down,
I
sir.
mean, they did obviously, they let a couple guys walk with those offer sheets, and I think that that is probably the, where that comment is coming from, but, when you have Ekholm and Bouchard, like, at that point, you're just kind of nitpicking. It's like,
Right.
well,
You're
if we
yeah.
had to improve something, it's
I
like,
guess we'd take somebody on defense, yes, but
yeah,
sit down, sit down.
yeah.
Number 3, we talked about Dallas Stars. I really do agree with that. I think Dallas is going to be a team in the mix. Number 4, oh, yes, Peter Laviolette. We see you. New York Rangers at number 4. You know, they're just always good. The New York Rangers they're just it's like a steak dinner. It's never bad.
So,
It's never
yes.
bad.
And I might even say, just looking at as I think about it now, I
Mhm.
might have maybe even flip-flopped the Rangers and the Stars on this. I might have
Really?
put the Rangers ahead of the Stars because Igor Shesterkin
Mach
is he's a machine. He's going into a contract year. This is a contract year for him. I think he is going to be playing out of his mind even more than he already does. And so for that reason and the fact that like they are largely returning all the same key players from last year. Like again, it's not going to be the exact same team, but I like this is essentially the same team that won a President's Trophy last year. I would have them in the top 3
Yeah,
personally.
they're gonna be very good. Number 5, Boston Bruins. Number 6, Colorado Avalanche. Number 7, Nashville Predators. Okay. Number 8, Vancouver Canucks. Y'all took, Kiefer Sherwood and you didn't bump up ahead of us and Kevin Lankinen. Yeah, I will say this, Vancouver, impressive team last season. The Thatcher Demko situation is very tough for Vancouver, who is looking to, kind of, keep their momentum going, postseason wise and into the playoffs. So, it's a long season and he may return and be fine, but don't worry, you all have Kevin Lankinen. But yeah, I think
Yeah.
I'm with you. It's interesting. Okay, the Predators above the Canucks.
I hope Lankinen goes in and just absolutely knocks everyone's socks off because
Yeah,
I feel like a lot of people are sleeping on him. So,
they are. They're not here. Not at
not
Locked
here.
On Kevin
No.
Lankinen. No.
No.
Number 9, Toronto Maple Leafs. Number 10, Carolina Hurricanes. Number 11, New Jersey Devils.
Now,
12,
I gotta
go
pause
ahead.
at number 11 for a second because
Yes.
this one caught my eye.
Mhm.
The explanation for why the Devils rank where they do. It literally starts from this writer. It starts, I'm taking a wait and see approach with the Devils. And to me, it's like, well, why are we not taking that approach with the Predators? Because again, you look at the Devils last year, the Devils were
Mhm.
supposed to be a playoff team. They were supposed to be really good. Then obviously they had some injuries. They had, other things happen, fired their coach. It was a whole thing. So they didn't end up quite reaching, their potential last year. So I think now it's like because they had such high expectations around them last year and they didn't meet them,
Mhm.
now it's like, whoa, I don't know about the Devils, man. Like, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Nashville had 0 expectations last year, exceeded them. And so now
Mhm.
people are like all in on the Predators. And it's like,
Yes.
okay, like I still think I personally would also apply that wait and see approach to Nashville, maybe for different reason, again, 2 very different teams, but I think that it's still like it should, that same wait and see should
Yes.
be, the approach that you take to Nashville.
Yeah.
That one just caught my eye cuz I was like, "Huh, that's interesting."
Yeah, okay, we're gonna do that here, but not there. I will say this, Toronto, Carolina, New Jersey are a couple of the teams, and like you said, New Jersey kinda had a bumpy last season, but those are teams that I'm like, "How did Nashville leapfrog them because they're
Well, they
pretty
got Brady Skjei
That's
from
true.
Carolina, so
We took one of those, but
no,
it's interesting to me that the
yeah.
Predators really leapfrog those teams.
Yeah, especially Toronto, I will say. I
Yeah,
think Carolina, they did lose some pieces. They don't have Jake Gensel, they don't have Brady Skjei, they don't have
mhm,
Brett Pesce. Like, I
right.
think that will, that will affect them. Their goaltending has always been a little sus over the last several years.
Yeah,
Um, and yeah, I think that, Toronto surprised me. That even the
right,
fact
yes.
that they were below Vancouver surprised me, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Those were a couple of the teams where I was like, now I get we got Stamkos and Marchessault and Shea, but like we're not waiting and seeing. We're not waiting and seeing. Yeah.
Yeah, no.
No. Number 12, Vegas without that's Sans Marchessault and one of your favorites that you really like, Chandler Stevenson. Um, so we'll see what Vegas can do. Winnipeg, lucky number 13, Tampa Bay 14.
That's another one that surprised me. How Winnipeg ended up ahead of Tampa Bay, I don't understand. I get Tampa doesn't have Stamkos anymore. Totally
Right.
get that.
Get
Do
that.
I do I think that they are going to win a cup this year? No. But I don't think that the Jets are any more likely than they are. If anything, they'd be less because Tampa Bay. See, I almost was going to say Stampa Bay. That's what they're going to have to
Tampa
call it now.
Bay.
But I think that they, you know, I I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that Jake Gensel is a 1-for-1 replacement for Steven Stamkos because I don't think he is. I don't think anyone is.
Right.
But
But he's
there
not nothing.
no, and they
He is
still
not
have
nothing.
Victor Hedman, Braden Point, Nikita Kucherov, Brandon Hagel, all these guys. They still have Vasilevsky as their goalie. Like, to me, it's like, okay, like, again, no disrespect to Steven Stamkos, but I don't think that losing him is enough to drop you below
Yes.
the Jets in these
If
rankings.
the
But
Jets didn't have Hellebuck, they would be nowhere near where they
yeah,
are. And I
that's a
say
good
that,
point.
said with love. But yeah, I
It's
agree with you. I look at this and I'm like, well, first of all, thank you for Steven Stamkos. But second of all, Tampa Bay did not get rid of somebody who is going to rob their I'm with you. They're not going to be a cup contender, but they did not rob themselves of an opportunity to be a competitive team.
no, not at
Yeah.
all.
Interesting. Number 15, the LA Kings. Number 16, New York Islanders. So that's where the Super 16 starts at the beginning of the season. Predators at number 7, based on potential, not based on wait and see. We'll see how accurate they are when the potential turns into players on the ice. I think Emma and I are going to be right, but be sure you tune back in to find out as we check back in with them. Before we sign off on this episode, Emma, let everyone know where they can find you and your work.
You can find me on social media at Emma_Lingen, and you can find my work at the Hockey News.
And you can find my work at Penalty Box Radio. You can find me on social media at AnnK_Mama on Ice. That is going to do it for this episode of the Locked On Predators podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We will be back tomorrow with an all new episode. We'll see you then.